Welcome to the highlights of FMX 1994 to 2020. This year is different. We all know that. There is no FMX 2020 in Stuttgart. We cannot meet in person, but we bring FMX to you with the highlights of FMX, which present outstanding speakers from the history of FMX to you. My name is Tina Unmacht. I am the head of the international office at Filmakademie Baden-Württemberg's Animationsinstitut, and I'm your host for this show. Hello, and a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us today, here in the chat room and on YouTube. As you know by now, your microphones are turned off to avoid background noise, but those of you in the interactive room can use the chat function on the right-hand side to ask questions, and we'll pass them on to our speaker. On this fourth day of Highlights of FMX, I have the honor of welcoming Mr. Ed Hooks. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes,
it's a pleasure to be
here. Well, Ed Hooks teaches acting for animators. In fact, he is the one who not only coined this term, but he also invented acting for animators by finding a way to teach acting theory to animators. He's also the author of several books on acting for animators and acting in animation movies, and he is the expert in this field. Ed has been connected and involved with FMX and the Animationsinstitut for many, many years. He came here as a speaker, as a teacher, and as an advisor for FMX. But, dear audience, see for yourselves, as the following clip introduces Ed Hooks in his own words. We edited this from interviews Ed gave at FMX over the years. Now, spotlight on Ed Hooks.
Well, first of all, I teach that the actor and the animators are shamans, and they're talking to the tribe, and that there's a circle in the dirt. And when you're animating, you're stepping into that circle and you're talking to people. They want to hear what you have to say. And the issue is, why are you talking to the tribe? What do you want to tell them? Why? If you put a circle in the dirt, they'll come, because we are a storytelling creature. And they want to hear what you have to say. And I tell people to be students of human behavior, to be students of what the world is doing. That if you want to be a good storyteller, read the New York Times, read Moby Dick, rather than an animation book. We need more shamans today, and I think that animating is an honor. I don't think it's just something to do. I don't think it's just a fun thing to do. I think it's an honorable thing to do with your life. We have a generation of young animators who are going to take animation as an art form to a new level. And those are my students. Those are the people I teach. The ones that want to take it to a new level. In a lot of animation, what you see are happy characters doing happy things without any conflict. They're cute models, they are charming, they're likable, but they're not doing anything. I teach that you should be able to freeze frame a character at any time and say to that character, what are you doing? And the character should be able to answer in theatrical terms. This is my objective, this is the action I'm playing to achieve that objective, and this is the obstacle that I'm overcoming. And if a character cannot answer in theatrical terms, then you have a problem, from my perspective as an acting teacher. Often, in some of these movies, even big budget movies, they can't answer the question. They're not doing anything. They're just there with an emotion and charm. And so that's what I look for with acting. A lot of animators come from a kind of a background where they want to endow a character with an illusion of life. and they want to show that the character has personality, where he can express emotion. From an acting perspective, you learn that emotion, in fact, is not actable at all. So it's nice and necessary for you to endow a character with an illusion of life, but that's not acting. That's just where acting begins. You start with an illusion of life. Walt Disney understood a lot about acting, but you've got to remember that in 1935, 1934, that Stanislavski's work had not been published in English. There was very little literature on acting. And Disney and his animators basically tried to sort things out for themselves. They tried to figure things out. And they got an amazing amount of it right. But they didn't get everything right. And Walt Disney wrote a 16-page memo one time about his ideas of how to train animators. That 16-page document became the basis for most animation training today. And it's a mixed bag, this document. He set up gags like many of the people in that day. The cartoons were shorts, that preceded the movies. And they were just chock full of gags. When Walt set out to make Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, everybody said he was crazy, of course, because they said that nobody would sit still for a feature-length cartoon. They were all imagining a feature-length laugh riot or just gags. Walt Disney understood that he had to make an audience not only laugh but also cry. And he studied live-action film. He studied Charlie Chaplin a lot to try to figure, among others, but to try to figure out how he did what he did, because Charlie Chaplin was very good at making people cry in one moment and laugh in the next.
Ed, first of all, how are you and your loved ones doing these days?
Oh, well, we're doing just great, and thank you for asking. We have cabin fever like everybody else, and we miss FMX being there this year. We've been trying to use the time when we've been closeted away here, and I finally opened a Patreon page. Finally did that for people that want to support me and have a bit more of a personal relationship. And most exciting, we've been working on instructional videos for acting for animators. Still working on them, and we'll be launching those in another few weeks. And it's been fine. We've been happy to be working here at home, and it's me and my wife Callie, and so that's how we've been. We're here in Lisbon, Portugal, where we live, and we're just working very hard and trying to be productive in the time that we have here. How have you been?
Thank you. I've also been fine. There's no reason to complain for me. Well, it's exciting to hear. Please make sure to let us know when you launch them.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Let me come back to your statements in the clip, which I want to use as a starting point tonight for this conversation. There are 3 overall topics I would like to address with you today, Ed. And these are: how can we learn from theory? And what can we learn from history? And what can we learn from the movies themselves? So let's start with the theory. Well, animation has a long tradition of passing down knowledge from experience and learning by doing. What is your perspective on that when it comes to acting and the special case of acting for animators?
Ah, ah. I think for a moment we lost connection. Are you there now?
Yes. Everything's fine again.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. That's it. Welcome to the future.
So, I'll repeat my question. We start with the theory. Animation has a long tradition of passing down knowledge from experience and learning by doing. So, what is your perspective on that when it comes to acting, and especially acting for animators, this learning by doing, learning from the experience of others?
Well, you know, acting craft and technique is what you use when you don't know what else to do. Really, if you have a well-written scene and you have a strong director who really understands performance, then it's fine. You got somebody saving the cat out of the tree, and it's clear what they're doing, and a really talented animator will be able to do that. The thing is, what happens is you run into scenes where it's not so clear what to do. I tell you, I learned about acting doing bad plays off Broadway in New York than I ever did in school. Because in school, you plays like Shakespeare, you were working with things that worked. In the real world, you often are working with plays that don't work. No matter what you do, you're going to have a problem. And so you learn what to do when it's not clear what to do. I have codified for animators the structure of acting, action in pursuit of objective while overcoming an obstacle. And all of this is very, very useful. And it's particularly useful when you look at a scene, you can't figure out exactly what's wrong with it. And this gives you something to do. You could waste an awful lot of time trying to figure out what a scene is about, set something up. But if you have a basic knowledge of acting structure and technique, don't waste time, you're much more valuable to your animation. You're going to be more creative, frankly. And that's the reason why it's very important to have technique, to have the knowledge of acting behind you.
Well, yeah, let's talk about good acting a bit more. I got the question from Jiro, how can I make my characters more realistic? And my own question would be, what, in your view, makes good acting? How does a character have to move to do it right and to make the film successful?
Well, you see, here's the thing. It's not the movement so much. I mean, yes, animation is movement. We know that. But the note that I give more than any other is animate the thought. Animate the thought. We humans are not like other animals. We have choices. And there's something else about this, about humans, is that we all of us are the protagonist in our own lives. Everybody's the hero in his own life. Nobody thinks they're a villain. Nobody thinks they're a problem. Everybody's the hero. Also, we tend to hide our emotions from the world. We don't so readily display our emotions. The early days of animation, back with the Disney people and earlier, the early days of it had the animation, the characters wear their emotion on their sleeve. It's like, I'm a happy character, and then you try to act happy, this sort of stuff. Emotion is not actable. Emotion tends to lead to action. If you feel the emotion, for example, of fear, you're going to tend to do something about that. Maybe you'll run away. Maybe you'll confront what's scaring you. But acting is doing. I have capable, incredible. It's not so much that you start with the physical. Physical is the expression, but what is the thought? What is the thought? I remember when they were working on Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, and with Gollum, and they reformatted the page, so I understand, of the scripts, and they had Gollum's lines all along one side and camera directions and whatnot, and on the other side, they took a pencil and they wrote in Gollum's thoughts. And then they animated the thoughts. That's brilliant. Everybody should do that. It should be part of the regular pipeline. Animate the thought.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Now let's turn to the history. You already mentioned Walt Disney. And you often use Walt Disney's Snow White as an example. I mean, it's from 1937. What, in your view, can students and filmmakers, animators, still learn from this old movie today? What can it teach us?
Well, I don't need to tell anybody that Walt Disney was a genius. I mean, recognize genius when we see it. Also, it's very useful to put yourself in his shoes and say, how did he do what he did? You know, that particular movie, he plays around with the difference between magical thinking and adult thinking. He said once, he said, you know, I make movies for the whole family because there's a child in all of us. So what he did was very clever. It's impossible to watch Snow White with an adult frame of mind. You turn that movie on and right away you're 10 years old again. And this is because he made the movie for kids, but he seduced adults into watching it also. So we turn on and off the magical thinking. And he played around also with the fairy tale. He changed some things. He was very shamanistic. Walt Disney believed very much in the American culture, in the American way. And he wanted to let everybody know about it. So what he did was he made Snow White older, number one. She, in the original stories, she's like 7 years old. And he made her on the edge of sexual maturity so that he could have the prince come in. And we have that element. But here's what, magical thinking. All children have magical thinking. Magical thinking is that a character can fly. Magical thinking is that the handsome prince can kiss Snow White and bring her back from the dead. She's dead at the end of that. But the kiss of life, which he made up, by the way, Walt Disney, it was not in the original story, but that would is going to bed at night. She prays. She gets down on her knees and she prays. That's not in the snow. That's not in the fairy tale. That's Walt Disney. Mm-hmm. I think it's significant. I think it's significant that Disney signed all of his movies. Now think about that. Would you sign all of it? It's not Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's Walt Disney's Pinocchio. So he's talking, he's communicating his sense of life in a very strategic, shamanistic way. Snow White is, in fact, an abused child. Here she is. Think about this. The adult in us really can empathize with Snow White. She's abused. And not only is she abused, she's got this crazy mother, stepmother. In the original story, it was the real mother, by the way. Hello. So in the, she puts out she's going to murder Snow White. Well, this is a terrible situation. Children watching this, they go, okay, okay, okay. The children, but the adult in us is already hooked. We have here an abused child, and she runs away, and she gets into the animals in the far forest, when all the little birds and the animals are playing with her and all that. That's magical thinking. They don't do that. Animals in real life don't do that. But we say, oh yeah, okay. They're doing it in this movie. It's magical thinking. Walt Disney got the adults to pretend along with the children. It was that was the first character-driven narrative feature-length animation. And imagine making the first one. Everybody thought he was nuts. They thought he was crazy. He said, no, I can do it. I can do it. I believe that what we need today is more people like that. More people who say, no, I can do it. I can make it work, despite what everybody says.
Yeah.
But I think Walt Disney and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a case study. I believe every animator should study that movie. I mean, really be clear-headed about what Walt Disney did in his time and space with that particular film and how he coordinated all of the animators. It is truly a monumental achievement, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I mean, we can talk about movies today, all of them, they're beautiful movies. But Walt Disney did something nobody had ever done. And that takes a huge amount of courage and commitment. And he did it. And so that's how he did it. How did he make people cry? By the time we get to Snow White in the coffin there, the audience everybody's in tears along with the dwarfs. It is a magic movie. It's not insignificant that Walt Disney calls Disneyland the Magic Kingdom. This is because it's got to have magical thinking. Magical thinking.
Yeah. Well, that's quite interesting. I have to rewatch it. Well, we got a tricky question about the magical thinking from Andreas Hukade, who asks, how is the magical thinking of Snow White connected to the magical thinking of the New Testament? Quite religious question.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I'm going to get into trouble if I start answering this thing. Walt Disney was actually quite religious in his own way. And that movie is very Christian. It's very American. It's, he believed that, number one, that the girls, if it was a wonderful life, they would find a handsome prince to take care of them. And it was, and if you said your prayers every night and you were a good person, that good things would always happen and everything would be happy in the end. And of course, we adults know that this is not true. And this is, bad things happen to good people in life. But I don't know that he actually tried to hook up a sort of an analogy to the New Testament, but it was very much the American culture, the American myth. And today it doesn't really hold that kind of myth, but he believed it did, and he was shamanistic about it. He wanted everybody to know that if you do these things, you'll have the most successful life that you can have.
Well, with my next question, I would like to connect the past that we now talked about with the future. In one of the interviews you gave at FMX, you said that you saw the animation industry at a turning point. Well, now my question is twofold. Can you elaborate a bit on what that turning point was or still is? And secondly, looking back now, 6 years later, do you see any changes in the animation industry? And the films being made today, from today's perspective, and where do you think this might lead us?
Yes, of course. 6 years ago, the streamers were just beginning. We had Netflix. Today, we've got, I don't know how many streamers. Disney's got them. Everybody's got them. HBO, Amazon. This is now the opportunities for the independent studios, the independent animators. In Hollywood, they spend $200 million US on one of these movies. They're huge movies. It really is all about marketing. It's about merchandising. It's about toys. It's all of that. Disney and Comcast, those two companies are so major. They have like 90%. And it has been that these companies have tied up the theaters. If you made a good movie for a low price, you couldn't get it seen. Now you can. In Europe, they've been making movies for some time. Remember Chico and Rita?
Yes.
I like Chico and Rita. It's a little long, but I like it. And that movie was made. They had a production office in, I believe, Barcelona, Spain. And then they had animators working in 7, 8, 9 different countries. And they were all working from there over a virtual studio. You didn't have everybody in one place. Before I got ready to talk to you today, I went online and I just was looking. There's a company in Toronto called Unlimited Media. I don't know them. However, they sent out a press release. They're talking about doubling, tripling the number of animators they work with by working outside, by working online with animators. This is the future. You and I are talking to each other across the internet. We can be creative. Tina, you and I can make a movie together with you there and me here. Yes, it can happen. We'll bring Andreas in. It will be great. We'll get people to volunteer. We'll do it. You don't have to spend $200 million US to make a movie. If we're at a point now, I mean, there was a wonderful little movie made in Brazil called Boy and the World that cost $500,000 US. You can almost raise that off a Kickstarter. I don't know what the finances are of this movie. Ali Abreu did it. I love the movie. I recommend it to you. But I'm sure they'll make their money back. And they've now got Jeffrey Katzenberg is doing Quibi, which is taking a movie and dividing it into a bunch of different chapters that you can watch on your cell phone 5 minutes at a time. And then after 2 years, the people that made the movie, they own it. So the Quibi is only licensing. They're putting up the money to make a movie, and then they license it for 2 years. The creators own it. I can't even begin how different the future looks. This is a very exciting time. Be an animator, forward-looking. You can really work outside of the box now to get friends and make a movie. And you asked about 6 years ago. I mean, we're at super speed, the way that everything is changing and developing. The movie theaters downtown are going to be mainly for big movies that have a lot of special effects, big orchestras, all of that. It's going to be like Broadway to stage. And streaming, Netflix, all of these are going to be more like the art houses. You'll be able to get movies in here that are adult themed. We're at the beginning of adult themed feature animation. Oh, there's so much to do. We're definitely at a turning point in the industry. If you imagine, what was it, 28 years ago, the Toy Story came out? I think it was about 28 years ago. And imagine 28 years from now. Look how far we've come. If you imagine if the industry continues to develop anything like it has been developing over these past 28 years, then 28 years from now, we won't even recognize what we're talking about today. And that is the 28 years of the people that I teach. These are my students. They are the future. And it's so exciting. These people are going to stand on the shoulders of Walt Disney and Brad Bird and others. And they're going to stand on the shoulders and they're going to go places where we haven't been.
Yeah.
Animation is the most underused, underappreciated art form of the 21st century. This is an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing time. And all of this is tumbling forward. Every day I'm more excited about it, and I'm more thrilled to work with some of the most creative people that I've ever met in my life. And that's what's happening. It's time now for storytellers. It's time now to take the industry to the next level. We can't keep doing what they did in 1935. It's done. They've done that. Let's go.
Yeah, I really love your enthusiasm, Ed. It makes me look forward to the films we'll see in the near future. And we got one question that connects directly to what you said or about the streaming platforms, or it is a question about that. Leonor Faria asks, do you think streaming platforms will start investing on independent animators, or will they follow the money path like the big studios?
There'll be a transition. They are already investing in animation projects. Somebody has to organize them. I mean, they're probably not going to just invest in an individual animator. There's got to be a project. But you know, this is an industry of relationships. People ask me what they can do to get their career going. They ask me this all the time. And I tell them, go find people that you want to work with. Go find them. Look, who do you admire? Who are your heroes? Go find them and tell them you want to work with them. The projects will come. And believe me, the streamers are starving for movies. They're starving for information. And we are at a turning point. The world has to be educated that animation is not just cartoons. It's not just for children. This is a powerful art form. And get together. People get together, come up with the stories, and go pitch them to that. The other day I saw a quote somewhere that amused me. Somebody said, over at Netflix, they're answering the phone, "Hello, you're green lit. This is Netflix." And I think that there's something to that.
There certainly is, yeah. Well, one more question came in from Larry Bafia. Hi, Larry. He says, "Hi, Ed. Do you think this period of isolation will have an effect on the animated stories that will be developed?" Very up-to-date question. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, well, hey, Larry, it's so good to hear from you, man. Larry Bafia was there at the very beginning of when I began to work with animators, and all the way back at PDI DreamWorks many years ago. And he's one of my favorite people. I'm so happy to hear from him. You know what, Larry? This pandemic, we're going to emerge from this in a whole new social order. I believe that. I mean, look, FMX right here. You and I are talking online. We're communicating live all around the world at this very moment. When we come out of the pandemic, we're going to keep doing this. And I think you and I, Larry, we can make a movie, you and me. You can get together with some people in Canada. We can get Tina involved. I can be here. We can make a movie. As stories go, well, I believe, as you know, that animators are shamans. I believe we're talking to the tribe. And Lord knows the tribe needs help today. I mean, look, the fact that we have a pandemic. Yes, there's going to be stories about the pandemic. Of course there will be. We should make it. Let's do it. But yeah, this is all going to change. Everything is changing. Everybody's going to be able to work from home. The studios, the big studios, the real estate, all of that, everything is changing. Let your imagination run crazy. Now's the time to do it. Very exciting time. It really is.
That's the good thing about the bad thing, I think. But talking about the shamans and the need to tell, or the reason to tell something, I know that you use a lot of films and analyze them, and you break them down and describe them in depth. For example, in your book, Acting in Animation. How do you proceed when you break down a film? What do you look at, and what would you recommend to students how they should look at a film if they want to analyze it?
Well, I tell my students that we are like a bunch of magicians, and what we're talking about is where the rabbit is hidden. Your audience doesn't want to know where the rabbit is hidden because it ruins the magic act. But we have to know where the rabbit is hidden. And yes, it ruins magic acts for us too. However, we will develop a different appreciation for magicians. And I think when I'm analyzing a film, number one, it depends on why I'm analyzing, but if I'm helping people learn how to analyze a film, I ask them to put themselves in the position of the creators, of the director, of the animators, and to understand that with every sequence, there was a choice. And why did they make this choice? Why did they do it? And what else could they have done? Does it work? Does this sequence have conflict? Could you freeze frame the characters and ask them what they're doing? Would the characters be able to answer the question? I tell you a short story. I was at an animation conference, and I was having dinner with a man I didn't know, and he introduced himself to me as being the head of animation on Big Hero 6. And I, what this was in that movie was when Baymax got drunk and he started losing power, and they had to take him back and put him into the house to plug him in to get his power back. Wonderful sequence. And he said, well, thank you very much. And we were eating our chicken, and then he said to me, well, it wasn't always like that. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, in the beginning, we had Baymax in a shopping cart. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, and then I think it was one of the storyboard artists one day took him out of the shopping cart and had him on the ground, and we thought that worked a whole lot better. And I said, yeah, well, it would work a lot better. Of course, you know why. And he said, it was funnier. I said, right, would be. I mean, you know why. And he said, well, we all looked at it. We all agreed it was just going to work so much better. It occurred to me right then that he did not really know why. He just knew it worked better. I see this all the time. Somebody will look at something and they'll know that it's not working or it is working, but they don't know why. I can tell them why. The reason why Baymax in a shopping cart doesn't work is because you freeze frame him and say, what are you doing? And all he can do is say, I'm waiting for the human to go plug me in. That he can't, Baymax in the shopping cart cannot act. I don't know how much money they spent, animating Baymax in a shopping cart, but if they had had technique, if they had understood basic acting theory, they never would have put him in a shopping cart, because you freeze frame him, it doesn't work. All of this fits together. Everything fits together. And these kind of mistakes are made at the highest level of the industry. The most expensive industry, they do this kind of thing. They mean well, and these are very talented people. I mean, come on. We're talking the Disney animators. They don't get much better in the world than this. And still they put Baymax in the shopping cart. So it's, anyway, I think you get my point.
Yeah, I definitely do. I want to put forward another question from Johannes Wolters, who asks you something that is also interesting. Would you personally like to see more 2D animation like Klaus by Sergio Pablos, or perhaps more photorealistic extravaganzas like the new Lion King by Favreau? Where do you think will be the mainstream center of animation in the next years? And I think he's talking about technology or technique.
Well, I love traditional animation, 2D. I like the imperfection of it. And I happen to think that there's a connection between your hand and your brain that's different from when you go through a keyboard. There's something else that happens there. Also, the computer tends to want to be more rigid. I remember when Brad Bird was working on The Incredibles, he told me that, because that was his first CG movie, and he said frustrated was that the computer wanted to be perfect. And he said, I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to have some of the qualities of 2D. And he said he was determined to make it do that. And I think he succeeded brilliantly. And that movie, by the way, was the first one to have an all-human cast in CG. But I think that it's not so much whether it's CG or 2D. It has to do with the story. In much of animation, in the stories, the characters do not have to pay the consequences of their actions. In animation, characters can fall off of cliffs and not die. In animation, Snow White can be brought back to life. What we need more animation. We need stories that, number one, need to be told with animation, not live action. But we need more stories where the characters pay consequences for their actions. Just like in life, when we get more of that, then the public will begin to accept animation as a true art form instead of an amusement. You see what I'm saying? Animators need to demand to be held to the same high standard as live action. A lot of the animated movies I see, Martin Scorsese would never get away with his stuff. I mean, in Frozen, the villain, Hans of the Southern Isle, 15 minutes before the final credits roll, this guy pops up and says, I'm a sociopathic murderer and have been since the beginning. Character had no development. It was terrible. It was a terrible script. And why? They say, oh, well, Ed, it's animation. Forget that. It's animation. I don't want to hear it's animation anymore. If it's a good story and it works, then that's what we need. And we need more of that in the future. Let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Talking about characters, Hazel Yankowski asks, hi, Ed. I hope you're well. Who is your favorite animated character and why?
You know what? You broke up right there and I did not hear your question, Tina. Try it again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll repeat the question. It's a question from Hazel Yankowski. She wants to know who is your favorite animated character and what makes them your favorite.
Well, I'll tell you. This is my favorite animated character, and the reason is because He, at the beginning, is just a metal man of the Iron Giant, and he learns to be more human than any of us. And what a major accomplishment this movie was. My personal favorite is the Iron Giant. And that movie is, I think it's shamanistic. I think the performances in it are wonderful. And I happen to just personally love it. I think that Brad Bird is a genius for doing it. I think he's probably one of the best of the animators and animation directors in the world. And for all of the wonderful movies he's done, Iron Giant is 50 years from now. People will still be looking at that movie. That's my favorite one. It really is.
That's great. Well, yeah, our students had to do an exercise where they had to pick an animated movie that is their favorite, and that has not their favorite, but that has personally and professionally had an impact on them. So for you, that's I suppose Iron Giant is among them. That the films that have had a great impact on you. Another question from Katarina Wojtasiak. What would be your next book?
Well, I'm really taken with analyzing movies, and I probably will do something along that line. Also, story. You really can't separate acting from story. And the longer that I teach, the more I realize that in this generation of animators, we have a lot of people that are technically very excellent, but they're weak in the storytelling department. There are some of the schools are really working with them. I know at Ringling in Florida, in the United States, they have everybody study story structure, and I think that's very smart. That's the main thing, is that story. I right now am working as a consultant, a story consultant on an animated feature developing in Egypt, and there's other ones that I'm talking to people, and I look at their scripts and I help them develop these things. So it's I find myself more drawn to the overall picture, to the story, and then the acting within it. But I would think that my next book probably will touch a lot on story development. Yeah.
Great. Looking forward to that. There's one more question about characters. Alexander Richter asks, what character, real or fiction, is great to use as a training reference?
Is great to use as a training reference? Well, my gosh, a character should have a development arc. They need to change in some way, and I'm trying to think of. You could do worse than study Alfred Hitchcock. His characters. He was brilliant with this. All of his movies, the characters develop. It's. I wish I'd have known that question was coming, and I would have given this more thought. I mentioned earlier, the Iron Giant, and I think that I hate to just keep harping on the Iron Giant, but you can study it and really learn quite a lot, because the character of Hogarth parents the giant. And Hogarth is parented by Dean. So you've got two different parents in there, and Hogarth teaches the giant how to be human. And he says, you do not have to be a gun. Well, I get choked up just talking about that. Why does that move me? That you have free choice, that you can be Superman. And I think study that if you want to. I mean, I can send me an email and we'll talk about movies and characters, and I'll be happy to come up with a better list. But until then, I can't do better than go look at that movie. Go look at The Iron Giant.
Thank you. One more question, asking for your advice with regard to story. Vanessa Schneider asks, do you have a bit of advice on how to decide how a film should end? What is a good ending for a film?
Well, in general, they say, and the wisdom is that a screenplay should end where it begins. You should have a similar setup, by the end, and a character should go through changing. But look here, It's probably too big a conversation for this one meeting. But I want you to think about why it is people go to movies in the first place. We learn our survival skills mainly from storytelling. We are storytelling animals. What you're looking for when you go to a movie, it is, yes, you're going to be entertained, but nature has taken care of that already. We're entertained. Okay, nature says, yes, this feels good. But what you're really looking for, you want to see a character, you establish the character, something happens, whether it's internal, external, something happens. The character has to deal with that. And they either succeed or they fail. It doesn't matter. The character needs to try.
Let me make a little announcement, because this is our last interview for this week. However, the highlights of FMX will continue throughout the year 2020. And the next session will be on May the 25th at 6 p.m. again, Central European Time. And our guest then will be Gayatri Parameshwaran from the storytelling studio Now Here Media. Now, Gayatri works with immersive technologies and VR, and how we can use them in a social context to raise awareness for abuse, violence, war, social inequality. So don't miss that. Be with us on the 25th of May and check the FMX website for more dates and more exciting speakers. There's still no connection to Ed Hooks, so I would like Professor Andreas Hykade to join us, the director of FMX and the Animationsinstitut, who would also like to say a few more words. Hello, Andreas.
Yes, hello, Tina. Hello, FMX community. Hello, Ed, wherever you are at the moment. I particularly like to thank you, Ed, for this inspiring conversation. It was enlightening, and it reminded us about what's really important. So thank you. I'd like to thank you, Tina. It was a brilliant interview. For me, it was a perfect closing of our first week. And I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the FMX community for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our program so far. We'll keep you informed on fmx.de about our future activities. Yes, so stay tuned, stay healthy, and goodbye.
And goodbye from me. I'm so sorry that we couldn't say goodbye to Ed Hooks. Ed, wherever you are, stay healthy, stay safe. I wish you a lot of energy and joy in this situation, and good luck with your work. We can't wait to talk to you again, and we can't wait to see the videos you're producing at the moment. So I'm sorry about the technical problem, everyone. Thanks for being with us, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.